Hi, I'm Joe Ward of Boxer Shorts Media. This week, many regular folks like myself in Cape Breton were outraged to hear of the acquittal of a man who hit and killed a child on a bicycle, kept driving, had alcohol in his system, and initially told the police that it was his girlfriend driving. Most of you are like me. We're not lawyers, and we're often left completely puzzled by the decisions that come from our justice system. We form opinions on guilt or innocence on limited information, often sourced only from journalists or just social media, and without the knowledge of the idiosyncrasies of the justice system and its many complex legal processes. If you had asked me to predict the outcome of the case before the verdict came in, I'd have most likely expressed some concern about how long it took police to do a blood alcohol test, but I would otherwise have suggested it was going to almost certainly result in a determination of guilt. Having a son of my own now, I can't even imagine what that family must be experiencing. To be honest, it's not a place that I even want to contemplate. I just know that it has to be absolute devastation. On a factual basis, I can't tell anyone anything other than what I've read, what is stated as fact in media releases or court documents. I can't tell you that a judge made a mistake, as I lack the expertise to do so. But I can tell you that from my layman's perspective, it feels overwhelmingly intuitive that the verdict was a travesty of justice. And an even bigger concern for me is that I find myself having a similar reaction far too often when reading of local alleged crimes and the outcomes right here in the CBRM. There are many that immediately come to mind. In 2018, a teenager was hit and killed while walking away from a large graduation party where there was underage drinking. There are allegations from some witnesses that the driver, who had attended the party for some time, was drinking that night, but no blood alcohol test was performed. We're told that it would have been a violation of the driver's rights given a lack of indication of impairment as assessed by the officers who were present. In 2019, a seriously injured baby died without being taken to the hospital. The father claims he fell with the infant. The media tells us that experts suggest every rib had been broken at least once with varying degrees of healing, and it was suggestive that they were not all inflicted at once. The father was sentenced to 3 years, but only for failing to get the child medical care. In 2006, a driver hit and killed a 6-year-old. The media reported that the driver failed the breathalyzer. In his ruling, the judge essentially indicated that a sober driver could not have avoided the child, therefore drinking and driving did not contribute to the accident. In 2012, a senior and a business person sexually interfered with his 3-year-old grandchild. Drinking heavily was noted as an explanation. Public shame as a prominent member of the community was specifically noted in handing a 4-month jail sentence. In 2014, a 41-year-old man reportedly awoke from having been passed out drunk and rubbed himself against a 2-year-old victim. He didn't realize another adult had arrived at the home and saw what he did. Although the judge found him guilty, the judge also rejected the mandatory minimum sentence of 1 year, stating that it would violate the person's right under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, representing cruel and unusual punishment. Instead, he was sentenced to 5 months. These are all the cases that I read about in the media over the last several years, and as a regular person like you, I was personally very upset with the outcomes. But I'm not a lawyer. I know these judges don't render these decisions without a great deal of research and contemplation. I know that without being educated in the field, there are going to be legal principles that are not available to me when I form my opinion. But I'm like most people. We're not lawyers. We rely on limited information and our intrinsic sense of right and wrong to form our opinions. If every charge a person faced had its verdict decided by a vote from the public, I'm most certain the outcomes would be very different than in many of the cases we hear about in the news. However, I also acknowledge that we'd get things wrong too. We'd ignore the principles of law. We'd make emotional decisions and we'd be satisfied with filling in the blanks with speculation. Quite often, we'd throw the book at them. We'd debate the ethics of capital punishment. We'd suggest sentencing beyond the legal maximum penalties prescribed under the law. I don't know how to interpret the law, but I do know when something feels wrong. I do know when it feels like justice hasn't been served. And I know that when it feels like justice hasn't been served for regular folks like ourselves reading the news, it must be absolutely devastating for the surviving victims and their families.
Please hang up and try again.